Hi everybody, we're rounding up the course. This is one of the last chapters that we're going to look at. This is an interesting chapter to talk about because we're going to talk about privacy, security, intellectual property. I think it's important to note, but I think it's also important to show you kind of what you can do and what you can't do when you're engaging your business and when you're interacting with stakeholders. I think there's a lot of good things to be said here. I think this is a good chapter, and I think you're going to get a lot out of this. So pay attention. It's not going to be that long. I'm going to reference a lot of graphs in the books, but I think a lot of this stuff is pertinent to you, and I think it'll benefit you. So you have to think about how regulatory issues impact trust in a brand. Anytime that a company has a security breach with a credit card, it directly impacts their brand more than you can imagine. So that's something that causes people not to trust the business anymore. In the last 2 years, we've had two major breaches with Target and Home Depot that have occurred that have caused people not to shop there as much. Those of you that are gamers, you know that the Sony PSN network had a massive breach a few years ago, and their way of compensating was to offer free games to everybody, which I think was a good way to reestablish and build trust. Things are going to happen. People are going to hack into your website. People are going to defame you on social media. Some people might even, hack into your social media accounts. The key that you need to remember for this chapter is how you take that and regain the level of trust that's going to help you build and market your business. So, is trust important? Well, yeah. And we're going to go over why this entire chapter. So, everybody has a different attitude about privacy and security. Each one of us that's watching this and taking this course has different information that they're willing to share with people online. Some people don't want to share their financial information. They don't want to say their salary and their income. Some people don't want to share their age. Some people don't want to share their race. Some people don't want to share their website viewing preferences. So this is stuff that you have to consider and think about when you're looking at privacy and security issues. So trust is not just an issue in the United States. It's an issue throughout the entire world. If you look at page 410, you'll see that companies that you can trust and honest business practices are second and third only to high quality products and services. So that's what's going to enhance your reputation as an organization, is that you've created something that people trust and that they believe in. So keep that in mind. So one of the things that you need to do is you need to align goals of your organization with the social good. If you have different corporate voices, meaning different people that are interacting on social media, that's a positive. This notion of transparency is a big idea. And I always talk about this in my education courses because you have to make sure that you're clear on who you are. And in business, you have to be clear to make sure on what and who the product is that you're promoting. Once trust is damaged, that can be a problem, and you might lose a customer for life. So you need to make sure that customers have the opportunity to do all this stuff. Whether it's stuff that you don't want because it takes away from what you're trying to promote in your organization, you need to make sure that customers can refuse to provide information. You need to have boxes that are checked off on your email list that says, I refuse to give this information. Every email list has to have the opportunity to be unsubscribed. You need to make sure that the information is not shared with other companies. If somebody decides not to purchase something, you need to have things in place that can allow them to get refunds or contact you regarding that. The idea of cookies. As a business owner, I would want to have cookies because I would want to see what websites my customers are going to, because if I knew where they were going, I could tailor my preferences around them. I mean, it's a genius idea, but a lot of people don't want to give that information. And you don't want them to provide false information to you either, because that's certainly not going to be fair. So when you have trust, you have more of a competitive advantage, higher profit margins, and you're going to not need to acquire many more customers because the customers that trust you, they're going to stay with you in the organization. So one of the things that you have to understand about this notion and this dimension of trust is how much security and how much control an individual has over what their company does and how that trust is conveyed to the end user. I think this is important that the customer has control over this. The customer should be able to tell you how they want to be contacted. Please contact me by text message, please contact me by email, please contact me by phone. And that benefits the customer more than anything else, and you have to show the customer how that benefits them. But if the customer provides a phone number and then they check, please don't call me, and you call them, you're breaking that trust. So the key idea is that the customer has to control how they're being contacted, when they're being contacted, and who contacts them. So most customers don't feel in control of how they're being presented on how they're being contacted on social media. I think that's interesting. They're worried about identity theft and knowing that there are privacy protections on a website. That's something that's going to actually help them engage more in what the website offers. So we give you kind of the Weston Harris interactive study. If you have a chance to look at this, this is on your textbook on page 413. This was basically showing how different companies use behavioral targeting and if respondents are unhappy with it. So even though it helps the business, if the business is charting what your behavior is, more than half of the people that responded to this said it leaves them uncomfortable. So one of the things that you need to do more than anything else is you need to give them the opportunity for control over what you can see, and also security features that enable them to see what you're using for privacy. If they see this sort of thing, they're going to be more comfortable. It goes without saying that there are generational differences between this. If you're targeting an older population, some of them are still going to think that their credit card information is always going to be stolen on the internet. That's just the way it is. The younger the person is, the more likely they are to have trust with how the internet uses their information within the organization. So most people oppose tracking, and this is in all internet users. This includes older people and younger people as well. And if you want to take a look at this graph, this is available on page 414. So something else that something else that you can actually look at. You can look at how internet marketing has been done, how people have deployed the ways that data is collected. This notion of OBA is incredibly important, and OBA stands for online behavioral advertising. You have to be transparent in how you're using it and how you're deploying it to the customers so they know how the data and the information that they're giving you is actually collected. And you have a responsibility to do that. So the Digital Advertising Alliance compliance icon is something that might help you. Look at the websites that you visit and see how many of them actually have this. The graphic is available on page 414 if you want to take a look at it, but it's a good icon that will help you see kind of where advertising is. And if it's something that they allow double verification and they provide trust and they show you how they're advertising, it'll display this icon. So this is big. This is on page 416, but you need to know that most people do not want to share their financial information, and most people don't want to share what their current location is. With GPS tracking, and remember we spoke about GPS tracking when we were looking at Web 3.0 versus Web 2.0, a lot of people do not want to share where they currently are. They don't want you knowing where they are, and your cell phone is a perfect tracking device. Financial information, a lot of people don't want to share how much money they're making, their job, and their income. And I think that's important to keep in mind as well when you're trying to advertise to a certain market. So, should you get privacy on social networks? Let's be honest, probably not. Social networks are done in a way where people can, if you're open about what you're doing and who you are, you're not going to have much privacy on social networks. So a lot of people have more concerns when they're using mobile apps. So smartphone users feel very, very, very concerned that they're going to be in a security breach, they're not getting the amount of privacy. information is being shared, and I think all of you that have a smartphone would agree with this. This is something that you consider. You're wondering if anybody's tracking you and what they're using. And a perfect example of this tying into the social media concept, look at kind of what Facebook went through with their phone app versus their accessing it through the website. Their phone app was used as a tracking device, and they used that information to give privacy features to other people that were buying ads, yet if you accessed Facebook on your phone through the web, they didn't do that. So this idea of having apps and it's used for tracking devices, that has caused a lot of frustration in people. And I think it's something you need to consider as an end user. So if you want to look at page 419, this is another graph, but most people are most concerned. Big idea here is they don't want other parties using personally identifiable information, or they don't want their credit card stolen. And what I think is interesting about this is that the graph that the book provides us with shows that in 2008, it's gone up in every single case. So more people feel more of a threat, and they feel like the information is going to be stolen now than they ever did before. So the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, this basically says that, you know, teens are using social networking, and we have to be concerned with how they're presenting themselves. And children under the age of 13 have to present and provide parents of consent notions if they're collecting information from you, and that includes social networking as well. It's why many social networking pages ask you if you are at the age of 13, so that they know that they're collecting information. The Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act became in effect in 2001, and this basically said that if there are financial policies that are related to privacy and personal information, and they're disclosing it, they have to let you know this. And obviously, I would argue that 15 years later, that's even more even more pertinent and relevant here. Healthcare, think to yourself right now. Those of you that have insurance, you're managing your insurance online in an online portal. My current position, I don't do it, but in my other positions, I've had to do this. It gives me control over my health records, but it also gives more people access to my health records that I might not have wanted to have it. So, global privacy issues, I think it's important to know that the EU, which is the European Union, has better privacy features than the United States does. Technology has changed. The US prefers self-regulation, and we're probably going to do more and allow more in terms of privacy issues, where other countries are going to have much more surveillance. We're going to talk about that a little bit more when we look at the global map and where this occurs at. So the FTC guidelines, this is available on page 423 in your textbook, but it shows you that there are three main ideas behind it: that there should be privacy by design, simplified choice, and greater transparency. When this occurs, this enables you to promote your organization better, and it increases how your organization is viewed. So you have to make sure that people, and we keep saying this, that people know how data is collected and used. They can control what they do with the data, that if they participate, their information is kept safe, and if there are injuries, that they provide a remedy for it. And that's like the example with PlayStation or Target that they offered with their security breaches. PlayStation offered free games. Target offered an incentive where everybody got a significant amount more of cash back if they went back and they shopped at Target. You need to make sure that that's in place, because if something goes wrong and your information gets stolen, and those of you that have had business law, stolen information, even though it's not an injury, it's not like the company punched you in the face, but if they steal information from you, that's called an injury in our tort law and our civil law, so that has to be built in and that has to be provided. So I think this is very interesting when you look at the different ways that surveillance occurs. Some of your countries are going to have huge surveillance. Some of them are going to have upgrades against abuse. Some of them are going to try to have protections and safeguards, but not many countries are. And some countries are going to consistently fail to uphold safeguards. So you have to keep this in mind when you're looking at how different countries or looking at their surveillance procedures, and I think that's important. So recent security breaches are provided in our textbook on page 426 and 427. You can look at those on your own. They mention the PlayStation breach, but I think the most current ones that you should know are the Target one, and you should know the Home Depot one, because those were significant. So the rest of the chapter talks about what this different type of thing is that's going to that could be security threats to you. I think it's important to know what each one of these are. The definitions are something that I'm definitely going to have on the exam for this course. Malware is software that attaches to you that's designed to do damage. So it's really not there to gather information, it's there to just damage you from using it. Spyware are sometimes the ads that pop up that have tracking devices on them, that after you visit a site, the pop-up occurs and it's tracking where you are, and it's not giving you knowledge that it's doing it. Adware are those ads that pop up without tracking, or they're the banners that go across the page that you consent to or you don't consent to. Phishing is when you try to collect information. If you send an email out that says your account needs to be updated and it's coming from an email address that's in Belize or Bulgaria or something like that, that's a phishing email. Farming is when a site looks like it's a valid site. So let's say I spelled Amazon, A-M-A-Z-O-N-E, Amazon. Perhaps that would be a site that looks like it, trying to get money or information from you. And sometimes people will simply just try to imitate another person in another site, and that can cause problems as well when you're looking to try to purchase things online. So identity theft continues to occur. I'm fortunate enough to say that I don't know if I want to say I'm fortunate, but I've had my identity stolen in the last 3 years twice, and that's because I basically went through a major move. In moving, I've used different credit cards to do things, and I've had backgrounds and credit card information stolen, and it's taken time to recover that information. One time was more serious than the others. One time they caught the person immediately, nothing went wrong. The other time they billed about $3,000 to 2 different credit cards of mine. Luckily, I wasn't charged anything other than the $50 credit protection for it. That's a positive, but it exists, and I'm sure some of you sitting in this class and watching these videos have had your identity stolen. So keep in mind that this does happen, and the younger you are, the longer it takes to detect it. So that's certainly something to be serious about. So intellectual property on the web can cause a problem in terms of copywriting. We'll talk a little bit about this as we go. So one of the things that you have to do, you have to make sure that you can make copies of things available for fair use. If there's copyright material that shouldn't be posted, you have to remove it immediately, and you have to have royalty fees if there's something that you're posting that's at the domain to others. So, what can we do to stop online piracy? We can look at different ways. We can look at different ways that it's occurred. Music and movies have been dealing with online privacy forever. Those of you that are older, you remember Napster and you remember downloading music. You know that the cost and the way that you download music has changed significantly, and that can be a challenge as well. And the artists aren't making as much money as they used to. And I know you're sitting there and thinking to yourself, well, they make millions anyway, but they're making a lot less, and same with movie producers as well when things are fraudulently done. So consider that, and it's why the cost of concert tickets have gone up. It's why when you go to a concert, the cost of your shirts and your merchandise is even more expensive, because you have to undercut what they're losing on the royalties as well, and it's why movie tickets have gone up too. So consider this and figure out what we're doing to stop online privacy. So Creative Commons, this is something you should definitely consider looking at. This is a publishing right that protects you. It's on page 433 in your book. It's a license that you can have, and it can allow for content to be used and modified as long as you have access to it and you're the owner of it. And that's something that you might want to consider. So I think it's important to note kind of the final point of this chapter. These issues in this intellectual property stuff, it's really more global than it is national. You're going to see different perspectives from different areas, and all of this is constantly evolving and changing. So I hope you